From the 22 News Plus studio, this is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of InFocus. I am your host, Patrick Berry. We're here in the 22 News Plus studios, and we're talking about something you probably don't think too much about, but it has serious health effects to you if you're not doing it right. Across the desk from me today is Dr. Rebecca Spencer. She's a professor of psychological and brain sciences at UMass Amherst. Dr. Spencer, thank you so very much for joining me.
It's great to be here.
You have studied and you are a professor of brain sciences. What does that mean?
Yeah, so I study neuroscience, which is how the brain functions, and more specifically, what is your brain doing while you're sleeping?
Okay. So I think of my brain while I'm sleeping of doing nothing. So what more is there to study?
Yeah, that's usually what we think, is that we think like, oh, I'm just turning everything off. But in fact, your brain stays turned on, and not just for maintaining respiration and heart rate, but your brain's actually doing really interesting things. So if we put you into a brain scanner, we could see that the areas of the brain that are busy aren't just those ones that are keeping you alive. There's areas of your brain that are involved in really cool, high-level functions. So that tells us a lot about how powerful sleep can be.
So if you've hooked me or another volunteer up to a brain, scan during the evening or whenever during your sleeping, you'll show a lot of brain activity while what we consider ourselves being unconscious.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really interesting activity because while REM sleep activity looks a lot like waking brain activity,
right,
there's other stages you go through that are totally unique. And we think that that tells us a lot about what sleep can do. We used to just think of sleep as this one thing, like I go to sleep and it's this one event. But we know there's different stages of sleep, and each of those can do something unique. And then also there's different parts of our brain that could be doing something unique. We would never say that the entire brain is just doing one thing while we're awake.
Right,
and
right.
The same with the sleeping brain, is that the whole thing isn't just doing one thing. There's probably a lot of different functions that are going on.
Have you been able to pin down what all of those functions are, aside from, the life-sustaining, the breathing, the, heart rate, or, have you been able to determine what the brain is doing during sleep?
Yeah, I would say we know some of those. I wouldn't say our job is done yet, which means I still have a career ahead of me. But the good thing is that we know more about that. We could certainly say our favorite is how much of a role sleep is playing in memory formation. But there's a lot of other functions. And even just by how much sleep is doing for our memories, that gives us a clean slate, which helps us process emotion differently later on as well. So there's a lot of cognitive functions in addition to things like helping your immune system, helping you recover, your muscle recovering, and so forth.
So let's talk a little bit about the health aspects of sleep. How important is sleep to our overall waking health?
It is super important. And this is some of the studies on this I just think are absolutely fascinating. So there's one really bizarre study out there where they put people into a room and they exposed them to like a cold or a flu bug. And then
While awake.
While awake.
Okay.
But they said, who's more likely to get this bug later? And the people in that room that had sleep less than 7 hours beforehand, so like the week going into that,
right,
those people that weren't sleeping enough were more likely to catch the cold or flu than those people that slept more than 8 hours in the nights going up to this. So that just shows you how much just having not enough sleep, insufficient sleep, can set us up for failure in these really common scenarios. Now, we don't have a magic number as to whether it's 7 or 8 or whatever, but in general, like not getting enough sleep is going to make you more susceptible to those germs.
What about too much sleep? What about those folks who regularly sleep 10, 11, 12 hours a night?
Yes, I love that one. So there is a sleep disorder called hypersomnia, where you sleep too much. That would really mean you're sleeping too much and you kind of can't control it, and it's disrupting your daytime function. And that's certainly a problem that you would want to talk to your doctor about. But there's also a lot of people that just sleep in because they enjoy it, or because they're making up for lost sleep earlier in the week. And that's okay. I would say instead it's a little bit more of, at some point it's not as helpful. So the law of diminishing returns.
Okay.
Yeah, you can keep sleeping. It's not going to do anything bad, but you probably aren't continuing to get more and more of a benefit.
I'm of the generation where, getting up early was looked at as, a go-getter, working late or doing things late into the evening and getting up early. You were kind of looked at as, that go-getter type of person. But that theory is really not smart because you really want to be able to sleep and rest your body, right?
Yeah, although that gets a little bit into what type of chronotype you have. Because if you're waking up early and you're that morning person, but you went to bed in time, that would be okay. And in fact, that's associated with some personality types. And there's a lot of great positive outcomes that are associated with those of us that are real morning types. So I would say it's a bit more about what time did you go to bed to make up for that early awakening? Early awakening and going to bed late, that's when you're really compromising your health, your cognitive performance, and everything else.
So there's a huge tie-in to what you said, your chronotype. So if you're managing your chronotype, I know I'm an early bird. I've never been able to stay up late. It's one of those things. My family laughs at me, right? And it's hard for me to stay out late, but I'll be up early. As long as I know that, then I can manage my sleep schedule to remain healthier.
That's right. Your sleep is going to be better when you're sleeping within your body clock. So all of us have a clock. It's set to about 24 hours. And that tells us we need to sleep every 24 hours. We have a lot of different body functions that need to take place every 24 hours. And your clock is set slightly different than mine, although we're both morning types. Yours might be set for a little bit earlier bedtime than mine.
Right.
And that tells us when we're going to sleep best. If I go to bed earlier than my clock is set for, this is common. So I work with some student athletes and they might have an early morning practice. And so they're like, I'm going to do the right thing and go to bed early. But they're young adults and their body clocks aren't set to be able to go to bed early. And when we go to bed too early in advance of what our body clock wants to be, you then have a harder time falling asleep, which can be really frustrating, which can cause insomnia.
Stress, and you're staying awake.
Yeah. Or maybe they're able to fall asleep because they're a little sleep deprived, but then they'll be up in the middle of the night because it will catch up to them. So there is some deficit associated with not sleeping when our body clock is really ready for us. We can shift that around a little bit by about an hour, but when you try to shift it by bigger than that, it's harder. And we do learn to adapt. That's what happens when we travel across time zones. But even when we've traveled across time zones, we know that takes time and it also takes light. And so there's a lot of things that we can do to help ourselves adjust if we need to move it around. But it takes some work and it's not with our natural environment.
Right. We are up on our first commercial break. We'll be right back. We're talking sleep. So join us when we come back after this.
This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry. This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.
Welcome back, everyone, to this edition of In Focus. Dr. Rebecca Spencer is across the desk from me today. We're talking about the benefits of sleep. Dr. Spencer, thank you so very much for joining me. So you talked a little bit earlier in the first block about how sleep benefits our immune system. You used the example or the study where people who got less than 7 hours sleep were exposed to viruses and they were the ones more susceptible to catch it. So does that mean if you're getting the recommended 7 to 9 hours a night, you're less susceptible to getting sick?
That's right.
On a regular basis?
That's right. It makes your immune system puts it in better shape to be able to handle when you're exposed to these things. And there's different reasons why that is. Part of it is that your body can more efficiently respond when you're exposed to that virus. So you want your immune system to quickly react and cause that fever. That's actually a sign that you're fighting it off. And so that process is all more efficient if we've slept well.
So is sleep sort of the time when your body rejuvenates itself?
Yeah, in some
kind of
ways.
get your immune system back on track, so you're better fighting things during the waking hours.
The better way to think of it is that one thing that sleep is helping you do is align all of the body clocks around your body. So you've got clocks in your gut and you've got clocks in your muscles. And if all of those are on a different schedule, your body's not going to be able to run very efficiently. It's not going to be able to react when you're exposed to something. But if you follow a consistent circadian rhythm, and that's the way our bodies are designed to live, now when you start your day, your body can not only everybody's working on the same clock, but it can actually prepare for things that are to come. So it can actually get digestive processes in place before you start eating. It can predict these things. And that's a super healthy way to live. It's kind of like if I entered the coffee shop and they hadn't made the coffee yet, right? So like living within your body
clock. Sounds like a nightmare.
Living within your body clock means everything's prepared for what's to come.
Okay.
And that's what's so healthy about living, not just getting the right amount of sleep, but doing it at the same time every day. So we recommend that your sleep bouts are like plus or minus 1 hour day after day. And that consistency really helps all of those clocks in your body get lined up.
Speaking of consistency, that's probably the crucial element, right? Remaining consistent in your sleep schedule. So for you and I, most business people or working people, you have a time you got to get up and be to work. So you have that alarm set every morning at whatever time. So back up from that, go to bed roughly, give or take, within an hour of the same time every night because you're getting up at the same time every morning. So keep that consistency, again, to remain healthy.
Right. Yeah, that's right. That will really set you up for success because even before your alarm goes off, your body has learned that that's when your alarm goes off. And so you'll see these the hormones starting to change even in advance of your alarm because it's getting ready for what's ahead.
And I have heard of people who have spent years, getting up at 5 a.m. or whatever to go to work, and then they retire, and they're still, even no alarm clock, they're still getting up at 5 a.m.
Yes, that's the hard part about our brains is once we've trained them, they like to stick to things. And so, yeah, if you ever are in a position where you need to make a change, maybe you get a new schedule or you're adapting to daylight savings time changes, then think of it in small steps. So we can't just shift our clocks instantly by an hour. We have to instead make those shifts in about 10-minute increments.
Interesting.
And so going to bed and waking up 10 minutes later every day and doing it in baby steps is going to work much better than being like, and we're suddenly going to make this big change.
Right. We're covering so much ground. I want to come back to, changing sleep patterns, but we got off a little bit about the health side of it. So we know the health side of it, your immune system sort of rebuilds when you sleep, or when you have better sleep, your immune system operates more efficiently. What about some of the other health aspects? I have heard that your heart is better off if you're getting regular, consistent sleep. Is that true?
Exactly. And that's all part of having all these trains running on the same schedule is when they're off schedule, that's actually when a lot of the body functions when they're not aligned. Those are the things that cause the onset of obesity is one of the first ones because we have hormones that are regulated by sleep that make us either crave food or avoid food, that feeling of being hungry or not. It's all related to hormones that are controlled by sleep. So as soon as you are living inconsistently with your sleep or get insufficient sleep, you'll see in changes in obesity rates, and all of that relates to rates of diabetes and cardiovascular disease.
So if someone is on the overweight scale, according to your doctor's office, and your doctor should be asking you about your sleep patterns, because if you're not sleeping well, to your point, you might be snacking more. But if you're sleeping better, you might not. So again, it could change a lot of your personal health if you're just getting a good night's sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. So the obesity is really linked to both. Are you getting sufficient sleep? So if you're sleep deprived, you'll see increases in weight and obesity, and living off schedule. So you might get maybe enough sleep, but you're all over the place. That's also related to obesity rates. So all of those things mean getting sufficient sleep and keeping it on a good schedule is really important to our overall health. And hopefully physicians are having those conversations. But if not, it's certainly something to talk to your doctor about.
So it's interesting. You think about the basis of living a healthy life. Eat right and exercise is really the two, what everybody talks about. Nobody talks about sleep, but it sounds like sleep plays a key role in that.
Absolutely. It's the important third pillar is exactly that, is sleep is just as important as exercise.
Interesting. All right. We are up on our next commercial break. We have plenty more sleep discussions to talk about. So join us for that when we come back.
This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry. This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.
Welcome back, everyone, to this edition of InFocus. Across the desk from me today is Dr. Rebecca Spencer. She is a professor of psychological and brain sciences up at UMass Amherst. Thank you very much for joining me. We're talking about the importance of sleep. Every year here in Massachusetts and most states in the country, we switch our clocks back in the fall and forward again in the spring. There's a lot of talk of how that one brief hour of change affects people. I'm of the mindset that that's a lot of rubbish. Does it really affect people?
Yeah, so there's short and long-term effects of doing this time change. And in the fall, it doesn't feel so bad because we're gaining an hour of sleep.
Right.
But studies show we actually don't sleep an extra hour.
Mm-hmm.
So we're sleeping about I think it's about a half hour more on those on average.
Okay.
And in the spring, you lose more than an hour of sleep. So even though you move your clocks by 1 hour, the averages of lost sleep are longer than that. So we have overall a loss of sleep. And in the spring, when we have that sleep loss, that is associated with increased car accidents, increased rates of stroke. And there's other types of accidents that have been associated with that loss of sleep, that 1 hour loss of sleep. In the spring.
But the fall?
In the fall, one of the dangers that happens is now we're commuting in the dark. And so there are also an increase in the short term. There's a little bit of a decrease in car accidents because you've had a little extra sleep. But as it goes, you'll actually see there's an increase in car accidents. Our most deadly animal in the United States is the deer.
Oh, absolutely.
And so those deer accidents increase because now we're commuting home in the dark. Some of that's going to happen anyway because we're in New England and we have short days.
Yeah.
But there are risks like that you'll see a bit in the fall. But even just that time change in the fall, you'll see are associated with various different kind of poor health outcomes to make the switching in general unhealthy for us.
Earlier you talked about, if you are changing time zones or whatever, or adjusting your sleep patterns, do it in smaller, like 10-minute increments. Is that the suggestion too in the spring and the fall when times change? Just do it in smaller increments?
Yeah. So the optimal way to prepare for those is to going into that night, start changing your sleep patterns before that night. So start moving your sleep by about 10 minutes for about the week in advance. And that way your body's not taking it as a sudden shift. And so the more gradual we do it, the more we're able to adapt. And also using light as your tool to help your alertness. So in the morning, this is why, the shift into daylight saving time can be hard is because we lose morning light. And morning light is what's so important to our health. And so the more you can expose yourself to light in the morning, whether it be because of daylight saving changes or just simply living here in New England, that morning light is what's super important for helping you wake up quickly and kind of setting your clocks all to the same time.
It's interesting because I know if you think back to late October, as you lead up to the time change, it's dark till almost 7 o'clock in the morning. And then boom, it's light at 6 o'clock in the morning, or shortly thereafter. But that early morning light access helps us?
It does. And that's partly because we as humans have clocks that are actually a little bit longer than 24 hours. So in order to kind of keep us living on a 24-hour real world clock, even though we have these biological clocks that are set for a little bit longer than that, we have to have light to help us wake up in the morning. And it also has been associated with better mental health, is to just get access to that light is really helpful for aligning all those body clocks and also improving your mood and your alertness.
Is the body being exposed to light, is that all part of that circadian light and darkness rhythm that our bodies get into?
Yeah, so light is so important for setting the clocks and what your rhythm is. So too much light at night is going to keep you from falling asleep and not let you get your melatonin. Not enough light in the morning will prevent you from alerting quickly and alerting in a healthy way and aligning all those body clocks. So light is super important for just keeping us all on schedule in a healthy way.
So if folks have a hard time falling asleep or staying asleep, what would be the recommendation?
Yeah, so there's a couple different things around that. I would say if you have insomnia, certainly talk to your doctor. And that's when it's lasted for more than a month. And when.
But what is insomnia?
Yeah. So,
is there like all right, you're up for X number of hours during the night, or is there?
Yeah, unfortunately, I would say insomnia isn't really one thing.
Okay.
Insomnia can be secondary to medications that you're taking or lifestyle, sleeping at the wrong time, wrong alignment with your body clock. For instance, if you're a shift worker, it's hard to fall asleep at the wrong time in your body clock.
Right.
So those are things that are like, maybe outside of your control or related to something that's not just driven by your body or your brain. But primary insomnia is often due to hyperarousal. So you could think of it as like, I'm either cognitively really aroused, ruminating, mind spiraling,
you're
stressed.
Just mind active.
Yeah. And then the other one is physiological arousal. You could be lying there and your heart rate just is not going down. Your temperature is just not going down. And we need those physiological changes in order to fall asleep. So that's why I think of insomnia being hyperarousal in the physiolocal and the psychological way.
But seek help if you feel like if you're suffering from insomnia.
If it's going for more than 30 days, if it's affecting your daytime function, it's certainly worth talking to your physician about.
And for those folks who maybe feel like as if they're getting enough sleep, but maybe are still tired during the day, is that an indicator that you're not getting enough hours and enough quantity and enough quality sleep?
It could be. In the winter and our very short days in New England, it can also just be you getting more light exposure can help with that alertness. So feeling drowsy during the day when you've theoretically had enough sleep, you might try just more light exposure. So I always think of I tell my students, sit by the window, sit by a light source, putting yourself in front of a light box even, which is something you can just buy for $20. Just giving yourself more light is a way to generally increase your alertness and can increase your mood. So it might be something related to your sleep, but it might also just be more related to trying to boost up your alertness.
We've got about a minute or so left. I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about napping. Is napping a good thing or a bad thing?
Oh, it can be both. So naps give us all those benefits that overnight sleep does. So that's the good thing. But if you're napping, it can keep you from falling asleep on time at night. So unless you're sleep deprived, that nap might reduce the amount of sleep pressure you have when you're trying to fall asleep at night. If you think like, if I take a nap for 2 hours this afternoon, it is going to be harder to fall asleep at night. And then I wake up late the next morning. So it can send you in a bit of a bad spiral. So I always say like naps are great, but you just have to use them with caution. You have to use them wisely.
Well, certain cultures do siestas, Italian, Spanish cultures, they might wind down a little bit midday to take a power nap, a 20-minute, half-hour rest, just to get the mind going again. That's a good thing?
Yeah, so those cultures are using them less and less. The older people in those cultures tend to still maintain them, but the younger people don't. A short nap. And also the other thing is they're doing it pretty habitually. So they've now entrained their rhythm to have that little bump in the middle of the day be part of their overall sleep need. It's when we nap today, but not tomorrow and inconsistently that it's harder to manage. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Well, unfortunately, we are out of time. Dr. Rebecca Spencer from UMass, I want to thank you so very much talking a little bit about sleep and how important it is to our overall health. Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.